When I was 4, my parents took me to the mountains for a charity mission. I was nearly abducted by traffickers, but Jessica Miller saved me. Grateful, my parents offered to sponsor her. She played the pity card, used that as leverage, and moved into our home. Out of jealousy, she murdered me, then poisoned my parents and took over our villa and fortune. My whole family died a miserable death, while she flaunted our wealth and became a top influencer with millions of fans. When I opened my eyes again, I was standing in Jessica's drafty stone house, just before my parents had offered to sponsor her. I looked up timidly and asked, "Mommy, what does little bastard mean?" My mom's face darkened instantly at the foul language. "Who taught you that?" I pointed innocently at Mrs. Miller. "That lady said it about me, and she took Grandma's jade necklace, too." Mrs. Miller's face went ghostly pale. Jessica, scrawny and dark-skinned, had been staring off in a daze the entire time. My dad reacted first. He stormed over and grabbed my mom's bag. Sure enough, the jade necklace was gone. Grandma had passed away just last month. The necklace was the only keepsake she left to my mom. We had come to the mountain this time to fulfill her final wish to donate the inheritance to charity. In my previous life, we didn't realize the necklace was missing until we got home. Because of its value, my mom filed a police report. But the area was remote, with no surveillance on the roads. The villages were connected and crowded with people. There was no way to trace it. Mrs. Miller cried and screamed, accusing us of slandering her. She put on such a performance that everyone believed she was innocent. It wasn't until after I died that I saw the truth after Jessica refused to give her money. She panicked over needing cash to buy a house and find a wife for her son. That's when she brought the necklace out and sold it. While I was still in shock, Mrs. Miller, now seething with rage, spat at us and grabbed a farming tool to drive us out. "Charity, my ass. Just 'cause we're poor doesn't mean we're thieves. You rich folks just look down on us, don't you? That little bastard, get the hell out!" Her shrieking, like a madwoman's, drew the neighbors over. Even Jessica snapped out of her daze at the commotion. Jessica's eyes cleared. After a few seconds of stunned silence, she rushed past her mom. "Uncle, Auntie, my mom took the necklace. I'll go get it right now and return it. I really do want to study. Please, since I saved Jennifer yesterday, I'm begging you, please help me." At her words, Mrs. Miller's face twisted into a hideous snarl. "You ungrateful bitch! To suck up to these rich folks? You'd even sell out your own mother? I'll beat you to death." Mrs. Miller went berserk, swinging a shovel down on Jessica's back again and again. Some villagers tried to intervene, but she lashed out with the shovel, scattering them. Jessica's agonized screams echoed through the village. It wasn't until my parents called the police and officers arrived in time that the chaos ended. Mrs. Miller was restrained, and Jessica, battered and limping, walked into the back room and returned the jade necklace. The evidence was irrefutable. Mrs. Miller was arrested on the spot. My parents took back the jade necklace without saying a word about sponsorship. When Mr. Miller came back from the fields with a hoe on his shoulder, my dad handed him a stack of money as thanks. As we prepared to leave, Jessica stood frozen in disbelief, then suddenly screamed, "Wait! That's it?" Jessica was shocked and stunned. "No, that's not right. You're supposed to sponsor me. If it weren't for me, that little brat Jennifer would have been taken by traffickers. Mom, Dad, you're gonna take me with you, right?" Her crazy-sounding words made no sense to others, but I understood. In my last life, she claimed my parents were like reborn parents to her, calling them Mom and Dad, all to sell the image of a rich girl raised by love. My mom tried correcting her a few times, but when she wouldn't stop, she gave up. My dad simply avoided her. I never imagined Jessica had been reborn too. The moment she called them Mom and Dad, both my parents' faces darkened. Mr. Miller's expression turned savage. He cursed and slapped Jessica across the face. She tried to fight back, eyes burning with rage, but he kicked her to the ground. My mom shielded my eyes and rushed me into the car. Jessica, barefoot, chased after us, crying and screaming until we left her behind. My dad took one last glance in the rearview mirror, then frowned and asked, "Is that girl mentally unstable? With parents like that, how could she turn out normal? Good thing we didn't offer to sponsor her right away. They would have clung to us like leeches." My dad nodded in agreement. My lashes fluttered slightly. Jessica had no idea my parents took my education extremely seriously. After seeing what kind of people she came from, they would never allow me to be connected to her in any way. Before we left, a village committee rep approached us. Dingshi village was poor and remote. Many kids there couldn't afford school. If we left, who knew when help would come again? She handed my parents a list with photos and family info for each child, hoping they could sponsor just one kid for school. After what happened at Jessica's house yesterday, my parents were hesitant, but seeing the sincere look in the rep's eyes, they couldn't bring themselves to refuse. I casually flipped through the list and said, "Mom, Dad, the person who helped me the day before yesterday is this boy." My parents turned to look. When the rep saw the child I pointed to, her face lit up. "That's little Luke. He's in 3rd grade and just ranked 1st in the town's recent placement test." His mom was the only college graduate from our village. She gave up her city job to care for her father after he broke his leg on a construction site. Later, she got married and stayed. She's still here now. After some discussion, my parents agreed to visit Luke Dawson's home the next day. I insisted on thanking him in person right away. They gave in and drove us over. In my previous life, Luke was indeed the one who saved me from the traffickers. While Jessica was dragging me away, he clung to the trafficker's waist to stop him from chasing us. I wanted to call for help, but Jessica told me the trafficker was Luke's relative, and they staged the whole thing to scam my parents. I believed her. I saw Luke again when I started college. He returned as an honored graduate to give a speech. The whole school was buzzing about him. They said he was the only guy in B University's history who was both a top student and a campus heartthrob. He studied interior design, started freelancing in his freshman year, and by senior year had already received offers from several top companies. After building a network and polishing his resume at a top firm, he quickly quit to start his own business and became a leading figure in the industry. I never imagined someone like him would confess to me, but I rejected him in public because of what happened when we were kids. It wasn't until he attended my funeral, and I overheard Jessica mocking me, that I learned after we ran away that day, Luke had his leg broken by the traffickers and almost ended up permanently disabled. That trafficker wasn't even his relative. The last scene I remembered from my past life was backstage at the Influencer Awards, where Luke drove a pen straight into Jessica's forehead. He had avenged me. This time, it's my turn to protect him. At the hospital, Luke's parents welcomed us warmly. After learning about his condition, my parents immediately arranged for him to be transferred to a better hospital and brought in top orthopedic specialists from the provincial capital for a full consultation. Once they confirmed that Luke's leg could make a full recovery, Mr. and Mrs. Song thanked my parents through tears. Beside his hospital bed, I asked Luke, "Does it hurt?" He shook his head. I looked into his eyes and said, "Thank you for that day, big brother. You have to get better soon." "I will. What's your name?" "Jennifer Delaney. I'm Luke." Here, this is yours." He opened his palm and showed me a hair clip. It was the same one I threw in the trash after rejecting him in my previous life. Seeing it again made me want to slap my past self. I looked up at him, smiling. "Then I'll give it to you as a keepsake. You have to remember me, okay? When I grow up, I'll come find you." "Okay." Luke closed his hand over it like it was a treasure. My parents decided to sponsor Luke's education. But maybe it was a side effect of my rebirth. I came down with a high fever for a whole week after we got home. Just as I recovered, we got devastating news from Luke's family. His parents were dead. Someone had laced their food with rat poison. Luke survived only because he was staying at the hospital. The ones who poisoned them were Jessica's parents. They resented Luke's family for taking the sponsorship that they thought belonged to them. While Luke's parents went to visit him at the hospital, they snuck in and spiked the food. Afterward, they stood by watching the chaos like nothing had happened. Luke became an orphan. Most of his relatives were barely scraping by, unwilling to take him in. His education was now in jeopardy. That's when the village called my parents to tell them what had happened and suggested suspending the sponsorship. After discussing it, my parents decided to adopt Luke. When we went to pick him up, we saw a crowd gathered outside his hospital room. Inside, we could hear Jessica crying, "Please, Luke, I'm begging you. Just sign the forgiveness letter. If my parents go to prison, my life will be over." I pushed through the crowd and saw Jessica kneeling at Luke's feet, banging her head on the floor in desperation. I was furious. I stormed over and yanked her up. Smack! A crisp slap landed across Jessica's face, shocking everyone. Jessica snapped out of it and screamed, "What the hell, Jennifer?" I was about to lay into her, but seeing my parents walk over, I swallowed the words. I mimicked a childlike tone and said sweetly, "Big sister, your mommy and daddy killed Big Brother's mommy and daddy, and now you're forcing him to forgive them? You're a bad person." "Oh, and I don't remember ever telling you my name. How do you know I'm Jennifer?" My reminder made my parents stop in their tracks. My mom quickly scooped me up and gently tried to calm me down. My dad, however, stared at Jessica with suspicion. "You and your parents have been targeting our family from the start, haven't you? Did you hire that trafficker too?" In our past life, my parents treated Jessica better than me, never scolded her, always comforted her. They never once looked at her like that. Jessica panicked and stammered, "Uncle, Auntie, that day was the first time we met. I didn't know you before, and I had no idea you'd be coming to the village. I only guessed her name was Jennifer Delaney because I heard you calling her Jennifer and I knew Uncle's name. Jennifer hit me first. Look at my face." She turned to show her right cheek, but there was no mark at all, not even redness. I might have slapped her loud, but I was still just a kid. I shrank into my mother's arms and began to cry, pretending to be scared. Jessica was livid and ran outside to call onlookers. "Grandma, you saw, didn't you? Jennifer hit me first." "Uncle, I know you saw it. Please tell them." But no one responded. Her voice cracked with desperation until the village committee representative came in and cleared the crowd. Only then did Jessica fall completely silent. I stepped into the room and finally saw Luke. In just a week, he looked much thinner. At an age when he should be growing, his small face was gaunt and hollow. I looked at him and couldn't stop my tears. I couldn't imagine how a 9-year-old could face life alone. My parents were talking with the village committee about adoption. I walked up to the bed. When I accidentally touched his hand, it was icy cold. I wrapped his hand tightly with both of mine and said seriously, "Big brother, my parents will take care of you from now on, and I'll play with you every day. Don't be sad anymore." Luke finally responded. He turned to look at me, and his blank eyes began to focus. Hearing what I said, my mom turned to him as well, eyes full of sympathy. "She's right, sweetheart. Just like Jennifer said, we'd love to take care of you. Would you like to come live with us?" Before Luke could answer, Jessica exploded. "No! You can't adopt him. You're supposed to adopt me. I'm the one who's your daughter." "Didn't you guys love me so much? Mommy? Daddy?" Her voice made us all freeze. Her eyes, bloodshot and terrifying, scanned each of us. When she looked at me, I mouthed the words, "Dumb bitch." Jessica instantly understood. Her face twisted in rage. "It's you. You've been reborn too. That's why you stopped them from taking me home." "It's all your fault! I'm going to kill you!" Jessica grabbed a fruit knife from the bedside basket and charged at me. Even my usually mild-tempered dad's face darkened instantly. He slapped the knife from her hand and twisted her arms behind her back. No matter what Jessica had become, she was still just a child. She had no chance of resisting. The village committee called the police. Jessica was charged with attempted murder and sent to juvenile detention. Somehow, Luke, who had been lying in bed, was now standing in front of me, shielding me with his body. I was overwhelmed with emotion. With both of his parents gone, he met the criteria for adoption. But my parents didn't qualify because they had a biological child. So Luke's household registration had to be temporarily filed under my dad's friend. That very day, my parents brought him back to the villa. Since his leg was still healing, my dad converted a room on the second floor into a full medical setup identical to the hospital. They even hired a private nurse just for him. I registered an account online and paid someone to post short videos. The story of how Jessica's parents poisoned a local couple went viral, topping search rankings across major platforms. Millions of users called for the death penalty. Justice prevailed, and Jessica's parents were soon sentenced. But just 3 months later, Jessica was released early for good behavior. Unfortunately, by the time she came looking for us, our house was already empty. I had known Jessica wouldn't stay locked up forever, so after her parents were sentenced to death, I pulled Luke into staging a little performance. Every night, we woke up screaming from the same nightmares. My parents were deeply alarmed. Around that time, live streaming was booming in the South, and my dad was considering a career shift. With one bold decision, we all moved down south. Later, I heard there was a young girl asking around about us. She waited outside for some time, and once she realized we had really moved away, she finally gave up. In the blink of an eye, 16 years passed. I was now a sophomore in college, and Luke had returned from studying abroad. He founded one of the most popular interior design companies among young people. After discovering his design talent, my parents pulled every string they could to send him to a top school overseas. Before he even graduated, he was already gaining recognition in the industry. Several financial firms tried to recruit him, but he was determined to return home and start his own business. Our current house's renovation incorporated many of his ideas. My favorite spot was the platform on the south side, designed by him. Sitting under the eaves, you could look through the small pavilion straight ahead and see the distant mountains framed like a painting. Wind chimes rang, and the wooden door behind me slid open. Someone draped a jacket over my shoulders with practiced ease. "Didn't even have to guess you're always here. It's getting cold. Why aren't you wearing something warmer?" I turned with a smile and met Luke's gaze. 16 years had turned him into the very image of the male idol from my past life. But unlike before, in this life he was raised with love and luxury, exuding quiet elegance in every move. "Isn't your company keeping you busy?" Luke sat down beside me and replied lightly, "Busy or not depends on the occasion. Your birthday's coming up, isn't it? What do you want this year?" Ch! Who asks the birthday girl what she wants ahead of time? Feeling a little put off, I said, "Just pick something yourself, as long as it's not the same as what my boyfriend gets me." Luke's face instantly turned cold. He stared at me without a word. "You have a boyfriend? What does he do? How old is he?" Not sure about his age, but he's cold and sweet. Tastes amazing. I decided that was enough teasing, so I headed to the fridge, pulled out a blueberry-flavored cone cutely labeled Blue Boyfriend, and waved it at him. "Here, this is my blue boyfriend. Want one?" Luke was speechless. In the dining room, I sat before a table of culinary horrors, tears welling up. Last week, the nanny who had cooked for us for over a decade suddenly resigned due to a family emergency. So from the moment I got back from school, I'd been facing my mom's signature disasters. Tonight's special? A mysterious red-yellow mess over noodles, her famous scrambled eggs, and tomatoes. Under her eager gaze, I took a bite and immediately found myself caught between, "Are you trying to poison me?" and "Just end me now." Glancing to the side, I saw my dad discreetly spitting into a napkin he'd prepared in advance. Luke was more respectful. He actually swallowed it, though he clearly struggled. My mom noticed and stormed upstairs to conduct video interviews for a new nanny. The next day, she showed us several resumes, and among them, I immediately spotted Jessica. It wasn't that her face was especially pretty, it was just a face I could never forget, not even in death. My eyes landed on the name field, and I sneered. She'd changed her name to Emily. No wonder my mom didn't recognize her. 16 years had completely reshaped her face. She looked nothing like the little girl she used to be. With the name change, no one would link her to the old Jessica. If I hadn't known her from my past life, I probably wouldn't have recognized her either. While I was still processing, my mom pulled Jessica's resume from my hand. Out of all of them, this is my favorite. Best education and experience. I frowned. Hiring such a young and pretty maid, Mom. Haven't you seen any movies? Want me to recommend a few to get you up to speed? My mom rolled her eyes at me. What kind of daughter says that about her own dad? Your father and I have been through everything together. If he had a wandering heart, we wouldn't have made it this far. Still, it's not the thief you fear. It's the one who keeps looking at what isn't theirs. And don't forget about my brother. He's young and full of hormones. Just as I finished, Luke came down the stairs in a sharp suit. His gaze was cold and direct, clearly. He'd heard what I said. I lowered my eyes and played innocent. Luke walked over, casually took the resume from my mom, and said, "Nice resume. 22 years old with 5 years of experience? So she started working at 17. Huh. She's way too young. Mom, if you bring her in, I might just have to move back to the office." Since coming back from abroad, Luke had been swamped with his startup. He barely made it home twice a month. My mom had long held a grudge about that. So when he said this, she immediately eliminated Jessica from the list. I didn't waste time either, called the agency and filed a complaint about Jessica having a criminal record. That's when I learned she'd used a fake identity and lied to the company. Jessica was fired the same day. What I didn't expect was that a week later, she still showed up at our house this time as my grandma's maid. Grandma, now elderly, kept talking about wanting to return to her roots. My dad had built her a villa in our hometown 2 years ago. The maid had been arranged by a local agency, but since I was having a birthday, Grandma came to visit. I'd just returned from dinner with friends and was heading to the kitchen when I ran into Jessica, wiping the dining table with her head down. Our eyes met. In that moment, I saw the panic and embarrassment in her eyes. "Miss, you're back. Let me take your bag." Jessica reached for it, but I dodged her. She looked up, confused, only to meet my scrutinizing gaze. I said pointedly, "We don't have that habit in this house. We're not like some people who act like princesses without actually being one, can't lift a finger once they get home, right, Grandma?" I turned to my grandmother, who was sitting on the sofa. She was a bit hard of hearing now and didn't catch what I'd said, only waved me over excitedly. "Jennifer, oh my sweet baby girl. I hardly ever get to see you. Grandma missed you so much." I ignored her and gestured subtly toward Jessica. "So, Grandma missed me so much? She found someone my age to keep you company, huh? I'm feeling jealous now." Reflected on the shiny marble floor, I saw Jessica glaring at me with murderous eyes, and I smirked right back. Meanwhile, my grandma kept explaining, still completely in the dark. Turns out, when Grandma went to the mall to buy me a birthday gift, she accidentally fell. Jessica happened to be there and rushed her to the hospital. Grandma wanted to repay her, but Jessica refused to accept anything. That seemingly kind act touched Grandma deeply. Jessica took the opportunity to pour out her sob story how she'd been fired, homeless, and helpless. Grandma hired her as a housemaid out of sympathy. I had considered everything, except Grandma. In my previous life, she rarely came to visit from the countryside and had barely seen Jessica. But back then, Jessica had cried to my mom about her old, worn clothes and how classmates mocked her. She begged my mom to take her shopping. During that trip, a motorcycle lost its brakes and came barreling straight at them. My mom shielded Jessica and ended up getting hit, which caused her to miscarry. She was 5 months pregnant, the baby was already formed. It was the grandson Grandma had longed for. From then on, she hated Jessica, treated her coldly, and nearly gave her away. We all believed it was an accident when Grandma later died from a fall down the stairs that triggered her heart condition. It wasn't until after my death that I learned Jessica had pushed her and hidden her heart meds on purpose. Even my mom's miscarriage had been Jessica's doing. She feared my parents would send her away once they had another child, so she paid a local thug from her old village to cut the brakes on a motorcycle and aim it at my mom. That crash had been no accident. My mom was a straightforward person, and in this life, she'd been protected so well by my dad that she didn't even notice we had a new maid after coming home from a nail appointment. Not until dinner, when I asked Jessica to serve the soup. When she reached the last scoop, I accidentally stepped on her toes. She yelped in pain, her hand shook, and the scalding soup spilled across her hand. She dropped the bowl, and it shattered on the table. The noise drew everyone's attention instantly. My parents were already frowning. Jessica stood off to the side, clutching her hand, teary-eyed but too afraid to cry. I spoke up. "I'm so sorry I accidentally stepped on your foot. Are you okay?" I said it like I cared, but of course she wasn't okay. Even with her hand covered, you could see the red blisters forming. And I'd pressed hard when I stepped on her toes. They probably looked awful. Jessica's tears fell silently, one after another, as she shook her head, too choked up to speak. My mom scolded me a little, more for show than anything. Grandma couldn't bear to blame me, so she just pulled out 2 ointment tubes from her purse for Jessica. That night, my dad went to Grandma's room. I quietly followed. As expected, they were discussing Jessica. "Mom, this maid is too young and inexperienced. She can't even carry a bowl of soup. Let's let her go tomorrow. If you really want to thank her, just give her some money." My dad was the kind of person who couldn't tolerate a speck of dust in his eye, whether at work or at home. If Jessica had been working under him, she would have been fired on the spot. But somehow, she had Grandma wrapped around her finger. Grandma slapped the table. "Listen to yourself! That girl saved my life! Of course I tried to give her money!" But Emily refused. Said taking money would ruin the kindness of the act. When I heard she'd been fired, I thought I could help her a little, so I gave her a job. And even now, she won't let me pay her well. You two are too busy with work to keep me company. You won't even give me a grandchild, insisting on adopting that cursed boy who doomed his parents instead. At least Emily stays by my side and makes me smile every day. Can you do that? Under Grandma's relentless questions, my dad had nothing to say. I stood outside the door, feeling like this was all just absurd. Jessica had only changed her name. Yet Grandma was defending her like never before, something that never would have happened in the past life. I knew I needed another plan. Back in my room, an uninvited guest was already there. Jessica was sitting on my bed like she owned the place, eyes sweeping over everything. "You recognized me, didn't you, Jennifer?" The hatred in her voice slithered up like a venomous snake. I stared at her in silence. Jessica hated me too. She slowly stood, looming over me. "You really thought moving would get rid of me? Keep dreaming. Last time, your whole family died by my hand. This time, none of you are getting away." She knew exactly how to provoke me. My rage boiled over. I raised my hand and slapped her as hard as I could. "You dare?" Jessica paused, before slowly lifting her flushed, hate-filled face to glare at me. "Why wouldn't I? If it weren't for you, your parents would have adopted me. I wouldn't have dropped out of school in middle school, traded off by my aunt for bride money. That man was a monster. I gave him children, and he still treated me like garbage, wanted me to watch him sleep with other women." Her eyes turned bloodshot, wild with glee. "I killed them. But I knew what life would be like for a murderer's child. So I killed my own kids too. And ran. That Jessica could do something like that didn't surprise me. She'd always been cold-blooded and ruthless, I sneered. Jessica, don't make yourself sound noble. Did you kill your children because you feared they'd be abandoned? Or because you were afraid they'd be a stain on your perfect little story? I'd stayed by her side for 3 years after I died. I knew her better than she knew herself. Jessica's face twisted with fury. Jennifer, everything the Delaney family has should have been mine. If it weren't for me, you'd have been trafficked long ago, lost forever. You repaid kindness with betrayal. You'll get what's coming to you. She practically spat the last sentence through gritted teeth. After she left, all the strength drained from my body. I collapsed to the floor. Memories of my past life swarmed over me like a tidal wave. Just when I thought I couldn't breathe, a shadow fell over me. I looked up through tear-filled eyes and met Luke's gaze. He was in a sharp suit, elegant and dignified, like he'd just come from an event. He didn't say a word. He just stayed quietly by my side. I wanted to say something, but didn't know where to start. I opened my mouth, then shut it again. The pain from my past life was too deep. I didn't want to burden him with it. Eventually, I cried myself to sleep on his shoulder. The next morning, the house was in an uproar. Jessica had used the excuse of bringing coffee to sneak into Luke's room. When Luke came out of the shower, he found her naked on his bed. He left the house with a dark expression and instructed the housekeeper to have his room completely gutted and remodeled. When my mom found out, she was so furious she had all of Jessica's things thrown out. Luke might not be her biological son, but over the years, my parents had loved him as their own. My parents had invested as much love in him as they had in me. Outside, the rain was pouring. Jessica stood, soaked, crying and refusing to leave, until my mom finally ordered security to drag her out by force. When Grandma came home from the spa with her old friends and heard what happened, she pointed at my mom's nose and shouted, "What did I do in my past life to deserve a daughter-in-law like you? Are you trying to piss me to death? I told you not to adopt that cursed child, but you insisted. I told you to have a second or third kid. I even offered $5 million per baby, and you still wouldn't do it. Now we don't even live together anymore, and I just hired a maid. But you went and drove her away. What? Is that cursed boy's bed made of gold? So what if someone else lies in it? If you hadn't adopted him back then, would he have the life he has now?" Grandma's voice grew louder and more venomous with each word. But what Grandma didn't know was that Luke had become my mom's dearest heart. She could tolerate being scolded, but not Luke being insulted. For the first time in her life, my mom had a screaming match with Grandma. My dad and I stood firmly on my mom's side. Enraged, Grandma moved to a hotel that same day. The next day was supposed to be my birthday banquet. But when it was about to start, Grandma still hadn't shown up. I thought she was still angry with me until we got the call. The birthday banquet was canceled, and our whole family rushed to the hospital. That's when we found out Grandma had been poisoned. It was tetramine, one of the most lethal poisons. She had ingested a massive amount. The toxin had ravaged her internal organs, her body was failing rapidly, and there was no saving her. Even with the hospital's best equipment, she had maybe 30 minutes left. When I saw her again, she looked 20 years older, her hair completely gray, lying frail on the bed. Tears streamed from her eyes as she gripped my hand tighter and tighter. I couldn't hold back anymore and began sobbing uncontrollably. "Grandma, don't cry, Jennifer." Everyone faces this day eventually. It's all Grandma's fault. All my fault. My grandfather had died young, and she'd raised my dad all by herself. She'd been strong her whole life. It was the first time I'd seen her cry. After settling her final affairs with my dad and apologizing to my mom, her eyes turned to Luke. She beckoned him closer and took his hand in hers. Her aged face was soaked with tears. "Good boy, you've never done anything wrong. Your parents' deaths weren't your fault. Being adopted wasn't your fault. Even after all I said to you, you still came to the hotel to warn me about Emily. You're heaven's gift to our Delaney family. It's Grandma who wronged you. I'm sorry. So sorry. Tears fell like raindrops as Luke's voice choked. There's nothing to apologize for. In my heart, you've always been my grandma. That one sentence brought tears to her eyes again. In her final moment, she pulled my hand into Luke's and opened her mouth, but no sound came out. All the monitors around her gave a long beep, and the line on the screen went flat. My parents were sobbing uncontrollably. But Luke and I both saw the words she mouthed before passing. Take good care of Jennifer. Before the funeral, police uncovered the truth about the poisoning. After moving to the hotel, Grandma had called Jessica. No one knew what was said, but that very day, Jessica moved into Grandma's suite with her luggage. The day before my birthday banquet, Luke went to pick up Grandma from the hotel. When he saw Jessica, he warned Grandma to be cautious, but Jessica overheard. Later, she spiked Luke's coffee with a large dose of tetramine. But just as Luke was about to drink it, he got a call. After the call, seeing that Grandma was still angry and unwilling to come, and not wanting to be late to my birthday, he said a quick goodbye and left. Distracted, Grandma drank the wrong cup. When Jessica saw her collapse, her first reaction wasn't to call for help, she ran. That's when my parents and Luke finally realized that Emily was Jessica. Jessica had been using a fake identity, and the trail quickly went cold. Police locked down all transportation hubs immediately, but after 5 days of searching, she had vanished without a trace. That night, I was jolted awake by thick smoke. Our villa was ablaze. I snapped out of bed, soaked a towel in the bathroom, and covered my mouth and nose before opening the door. And right there in the hallway stood Jessica, wild-eyed and waving a flaming torch. "Where do you think you're going, Jennifer?" Behind her, the fire raged. Smoke filled the air. She actually smiled like a lunatic. I finally understood. "You've been hiding in our house this whole time?" Jessica smirked. "Not totally dumb, I see. Too bad. In our last life, I tricked you into a burning building and watched you die in the flames. This time will be no different. Jennifer, no matter how clever you are, you can't change your fate." With that, she flung the torch at me. Flames erupted in a loud whoosh. I fell back, terrified. Seeing me like that made her laugh. "Jennifer, my life is over anyway. But taking you down with me? That doesn't sound too bad." As the wall of fire between us grew taller than a person, I suddenly laughed. I stood slowly. "Aren't you the least bit curious, Jessica? With a fire this big, why haven't my parents or Luke come looking for me?" Her smile froze. That's when she realized there was no one else in the house. Even the servants were gone. "Jessica, goodbye. After you die, I'll spend a fortune hiring monks and priests to chant and bless your soul so you'll never know peace for eternity." With that, I opened the closet door beside me and stepped in. Behind me, I heard Jessica scream, "Jennifer, you'll never die in peace! I won't let you go!" But I couldn't hear the rest, because I'd already entered the hidden room with my family. We didn't call the police until the villa had burned to ashes. When the house was first built, I had suggested constructing a secret chamber beneath the lowest level. The chamber was made of special materials, fireproof and waterproof. Every wardrobe in the house was connected to it by hidden tunnels. These tunnels were one-way and equipped with the most advanced facial recognition tech on the market. No matter the situation, it would recognize us. When police couldn't find Jessica, I figured she hadn't left. She must have been hiding somewhere dangerously close, so close we couldn't detect her. I immediately discussed a plan with my parents and Luke. I could have escaped right away, but I worried that if she discovered the house was empty, she'd flee the fire. So I waited until the fire had spread far enough that she'd have no way out. I wanted her dead. Only when she was gone could I truly be at peace. Growing up step by step over the years, I'd been thinking constantly about how to kill Jessica, how to do it without leaving any evidence. But I had also given her a way out. If she could just accept her lot in life and stop clinging to my family, I wouldn't have gone after her. After all, this life was earned at the cost of my entire family's death in the last one. She wasn't worth me sacrificing the hard-won life I had now just to kill her. But sadly, she never figured that out. When she showed up again, I kept poking and provoking her in subtle ways. I made it seem like I was afraid of fire. She probably thought it was a trauma from being burned to death in my past life. That must be why she tried to burn me again. But even then, there was no guarantee she'd go completely insane and set the villa on fire, unless she was driven to utter desperation. And honestly, I knew better than anyone how her life had gone all these years. It was me who caused her to drop out of school. It was me who paid her aunt to marry her off. I spent months picking through nearly 100 villages to find the worst possible family for her, the one with the most twisted reputation. Their previous daughter-in-law was bullied to death, pushed to jump off a building by the mother-in-law and 4 older sisters-in-law. Her husband had been spoiled since childhood, seemed obedient enough so long as no one tempted him. After she gave birth to her youngest son, I paid 2 nightclub girls to start working at his factory. I kept sending people to break her spirit, crossing every moral line until she turned into a fugitive. And now, at last, everything was over. The 30-story rooftop restaurant offered a stunning panoramic view of the city skyline and river. Luke had made up for my birthday. After I made my wish, he handed me a gift. "What did you wish for?" I smiled and decided to shoot my shot. "I wished that you and I would love each other and be together forever." Luke's face dropped. He quickly reached out to cover my mouth, but was too late. Frustrated, he muttered, "Now the wish won't come true. I'll go buy another cake. You can make a new one." He stood up in a hurry. I grabbed his hand. "Dummy, I was kidding. That's not what I wished for. Come closer, I'll whisper it to you." Luke looked skeptical, but still leaned in. I kissed him on the cheek. In an instant, his face and ears turned bright red. I lowered my voice and said softly, "Okay, I lied. That really was my wish. Luke, I've liked you since we were kids. Even my parents know I like you. What about you? Do you like me?" Luke met my gaze with those beautiful eyes of his. Under my burning stare, he cupped the back of my head and pressed his lips to mine. He gently covered my eyes with his palm as he kissed me slow, sincere, and reverent. I couldn't help but smile. Turns out, even when your eyes are covered, love still finds a way to pour straight out of your heart.